It all started then. I was sitting there on the couch when my dad walked into the room. It was second grade, and I was tired. I'd been playing baseball. He flipped through the Apple TV until we got to a certain movie, The Maltese Falcon. What happened that night, the movie that I watched, would change my life forever. It was the first noir film I'd ever seen, and I was hooked immediately. Something about it was just so different to any of the other movies that I had seen at that time. It was dark, and the characters were cool and mysterious. And it turns out, it was different than anything that anyone in 1941 had seen as well. John Huston's adaptation of The Maltese Falcon, released in 1941, is widely cited as the first film noir ever made. But the term wouldn't even be invented until 1946. After the end of World War II, with the influx of American cinema into France, French film critic Nino Frank coined the term film noir, literally translating to black film, but more closely meaning dark film, to describe these cynical and dark films produced in the Americas. But this term would not come to wide-scale use in the Americas. In fact, it was largely ignored, which does beg the question, what even is a film noir? Well, as it turns out, that's a pretty difficult thing to decipher. But today, I think we should give it a try. So, let's get out our cigarettes and discuss the cynical cinema of film noir. As Robert Durgnaw says in Painted Black, the family tree of the film noir, the film noir is not a genre as the Western and gangster film, but takes us into the realm of classification by motif and tone. Film noir is a movement more than a genre, unmistakably inspired by the rapid disillusionment of the American public preceding and following World War II. Noir films all follow motifs of tonal cynicism, bleak realism, and a penchant for the dark underbelly of society that comes through both visually and thematically to create a consistent noir tone. Billy Wilder's 1950 film noir, Sunset Boulevard, distinguishes itself narratively, yet is unmistakably a film noir because of its tone and motif. Comparing The Maltese Falcon and films like Sunset Boulevard reveals how film noir is defined by tone and motif, and analyzing their similarities shows the traits that define the individual films as noir. The hard-boiled literary tradition is an undeniable influence on the noir. Dashiell Hammett, the writer of the original work from which the film was adapted, is one of the most quintessential hard-boiled writers of all time. The cynical, detached attitude of Sam Spade, or the apathetic unreliability of Bridget O'Shaughnessy, are characteristics developed by the lineage of American hard-boilists like James M. Cain, Horace McCoy, and Dashiell Hammett. Furthermore, the character of the hard-boiled detective in many ways acts as a forefather to film noir's shaded and gray protagonist. Humphrey Bogart's portrayal of Detective Sam Spade, with a dry wit, sarcastic edge, and a cynical disposition, is a staple of film noir, and would contribute to the performances of actors like Fred MacMurray from Double Indemnity, 1944, and Robert Mitchum in Out of the Past, 1947, in their noir roles. Indeed, the iconic Bogart role is a prime example of a common noir trope or motif, the detached and alienated protagonist. All that being said, he is still a notably different noir protagonist than we normally expect. As Robert G. Porfirio writes in No Way Out, Existential Motifs in Film Noir, Sam Spade, as portrayed by Humphrey Bogart, is the least typical noir hero since he is the less vulnerable. Sam Spade can put up a front and protect himself from any temptations that come his way, including Bridget or even the promise of thousands and thousands of dollars. His locus of control is within himself, instead of existentially on the outside world. Look, for example, at Sunset Boulevard, a film that releases 9 years later, shows the main character Joe Gillis as completely out of his depth. The film, in fact, starts with his death already apparent in the opening monologue. The opening monologue, which in and of itself is proof of a more fatalistic type of story, one where we already know the ending, and it's bad. But to have him be dead is even more fatalist and bleak. And this should be no surprise. In the 9 years between the releasing of these two films, post-war disillusionment has only increased. And it really gets to the heart of what a film noir is. Film noir is inherently a response to social injustices and problems within American society. That's why they're pretty uniquely American. GIs returning home from war were going into a world where they no longer had a sort of sustainability. They were being asked to be normal, but that was impossible because they had just been in World War II. And that's great. Well, maybe not for them, but certainly for us. We can now say that we know why film noir is, but I feel like we've yet to answer the big question. What's a film noir? Well, it's a good question. I think the obvious joke here is to say that a film noir is a film that's mostly black. And while that joke is super funny, it also correlates to a fundamental truth of noir's visual style. Narratively, thematically, and tonally, a film noir is a dark film that has existentialist tones and motifs. And these aren't defined by any sort of genre. Look at Sunset Boulevard. This is essentially a melodrama that is completely foreign from films like Double Indemnity or The Maltese Falcon, but it's unequivocally a film noir in the way it expresses its tone. Even more crucially to understanding film noir is an understanding of methodology. As Paul Schrader writes, film noir is more interested in style than theme. The theme is often hidden in the style, and bogus themes are often flaunted, which contradict the style. Style becomes more valuable than narrative in a film noir. It adds layers and context to a film that reveals the ultimate themes. Take, for example, the scene of Sam Spade coldly receiving the phone call of his partner's death, using chiaroscuro lighting and a distant framing without clear visuals of Spade. It metaphorically conveys his emotional alienation and his cynical existentialism as he hides from both his internal emotions and the audience on frame. The film noir is uniquely adept at this specific style. It's ultimately defined as a film style based on visual and thematic motifs that create a cynical, existential, dark, and unequivocally noir tone. Film noir is actually incredibly unique in what it's offering. Especially at that time, it is providing an opportunity to tell stories that you already know aren't going to be popular, and that's not the point. They are gritty, they are cynical, and they are nihilistic tales that show the world in a sort of gritty realism. It is the tale of Americans who are fed up with the 1930s glitz glam of Rose and are ready for a noir film. And because it's okay that these aren't supposed to be popular, we branch out into a lot of diverse themes. We branch out into the themes of the amoral gray hero, which is something that still goes on to this very day. And people like Deadpool, Marvel head. But outside of the jokes, we have fantastic feminist stories coming out of the film noir period. Think about Mildred Pierce, a through and through feminist tale, and also the femme fatale, which is a recurring character in every single noir movie, is a powerful woman who bests a man. It's feminism. But really, noir is that style and tone of those movies. It's about the state of the world. It's about resisting the state of the world. And even if the world world of a noir is hopeless and gritty and cynical. Making the films suggests that we have the power to explain it and fight against it. And I think that's what the film noir era is all about.
There's nothing else. Just us. And the cameras. And those wonderful people out there in the dark. All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
It's 1:04 a.m. in the morning. I hope you liked this. I actually had a lot of fun putting it together. I know some of the footage is it's iffy, but thank you for letting me turn this in late. I don't know why I did this to myself, but I decided to go in and I downloaded OBS on my computer, and that's how I captured all of the footage except for Sunset Boulevard, which I did have a pirated copy in habla español. Yeah, that's my. These are my sources. Read them; they're really good. There's a book anthology. Anyway, bye.